Biblical exile is both a physical displacement, but also a spiritual one. And that's what I want us to see this morning in Psalm 137. It was written around when Israel was in Babylonian captivity, exile. As you can imagine, it's not a good psalm, but it teaches us a tremendous amount about pain and disorder. Now keep in mind, this is a cry of people attempting to find normalcy after their entire lives are uprooted into chaos. Verse 1, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and there we wept when we remembered Zion. There's just not much more gut-wrenching lines in all of the Psalter than this. You feel the pain of the displaced Israelites wondering if they're ever going to see home again. Think about what they must have felt. Now, hear the context. This is verses 1 through 4. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and there we wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows there we hung up our harps, for there our captors asked us for songs, and our tormentors asked us for mirth, saying, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." How could we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? It really is gut-wrenching. Their tormentors and captors forced them to sing their songs of old, mocking their worship. So they bury their heads and they cry, "How could we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land?" I feel this. They were utterly broken, and they had no idea if it was going to get better. So they do what feels natural to us all. They turn their sadness into hate, and they offer a scathing rebuke of it all, hoping to sway the God of their ancestors, knowing that that God could inflict pain on their enemies. They asked this in verse 5. "If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand wither. Let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. Remember, O Lord, against the Edomites, the day of Jerusalem's fall, how they said, tear it down, down to the foundations. O daughter Babylon, you devastator. Happy shall be who pay you back what you have done to us. Happy shall they be who take your little ones and dash them against the rock." You didn't read or hear that wrong. They pray their enemies and their enemies' children will be destroyed. And they want to revel in it. They want revenge. And we can all understand the emotion here. And some of us even relate. Pain, hurt, divorce, surgery, death of a loved one, failure, getting laid off, seasons of depression or anxiety, changing a major in school, financial hardships, quitting a job, family problems, mental health concerns. There are 1,000,001 different things that exile us spiritually and emotionally. And if we're not careful, our brokenness can easily slip into anger and hate. And we can feel the rage and the need to avenge, just like Israel. And this is the tell that you know you're feeling this sort of disordering. You hate. You create dualistic worldviews. You consistently feel and play the role of victim or victimizer. Both lead to disorder. Which, to bring Jesus into the conversation, is what mesmerizes me about him more than anything. He never creates victims, and he never plays the victim. Now challenge me on that. Find a time when he does. He was never emotionally or psychologically exiled. He was physically and socially displaced by his family and friends. He was murdered by his own, but he never created nor claimed victimhood. He withstands all traps of falling into the lostness and hatefulness that comes with disorder. Now, this is not true for Israel. They were completely upended. They were both the victim and the victimizer, and they were fueled by hate. And they have a lot to teach us in this psalm. When we move into a fully disordered state, we're not ourselves. We're altered, different, a shadow of our true nature, because we're broken. Israel was broken. They were supposed to be God's people and to live in God's land and to reign over God's kingdom, and now it's all gone. And they'll never be the same again. Now, I don't want to trivialize Israel's pain, but I need to make a probably poor anecdotal connection to our experience today. It's really hard to overlook how our experience of the coronavirus and what's happening to the Western church mirrors so much of the feelings we see in Israel. What was for us in so many ways is gone. It'll never be the same again. It will be something, we'll have a future, but it won't be the same. Take church. It will feel different for the rest of our lives. Those who have graduated over the last 2 years will always be known as the COVID kids. Every child will remember when they wore a mask in school. Church programming, church budgets, church worship, it's all going to be different. And we're left processing all of this pain. And so is every church at every level, by the way. Every denomination is hemorrhaging members in the Western Hemisphere. People's spirituality have moved beyond the confines of organized weekly worship, and the church has to learn how to navigate this exiled season. So what can we learn from Israel here? We better see that Psalm 137 is a cautionary tale, and we need to do our best not to fall into their trap of victimhood. And let's also not become the victimizer. So how do we course correct? First, we need to realize that our disordering can have a purpose and provide a path. It can lead us out of something that is no more into something new. Secondly, we need to see that God didn't put us into this disordering. Life did. But we can get through it if we realize God is there to help. Third, we need to see that it's going to take prophets to disorder us. The role of the prophet is meant to harness and to teach Israel the power of self-critique. Prophets hold up a mirror in Israel to say, look at yourself, see your pain, name it, and here's how you can redeem it. But in Psalm 137, in the midst of Babylonian captivity, they weren't ready to name anything or listen to any prophets yet. They were still suffering, and it shows. But if they are to reorder, they will have to do the hard work of self-examination, self-critique. They'll have to see their pains and their frailties and anger for what it is. And they'll have to move on from being the victim or victimizer mindset and realize this pain can lead them to love. I often say that the two greatest spiritual teachers in our lives is deep love and deep suffering. What Israel is experiencing in Psalm 137 is deep suffering. What the church is going through today, deep suffering. What we're experiencing individually and as a family due to COVID-19 is deep suffering. The good news about this, though, is when we see our pain for what it is, it moves us to deep love. You may be feeling disordered now, and that's okay. There's hope. Israel eventually comes out of it, and if you let yourself process your grief, you'll experience something better too. It will come later, but eventually you'll move from disorder to reorder. It's not easy, but it's the path of true wisdom. And when we take it, that's when we find deep love.